Hello, and welcome to the Leesa Story Hour, inspired by Grandpa's story time. Tonight's story is called The Boy Who Listened to the Wind. Take a slow breath in and let it go. Now settle in and listen closely. There was once a boy who believed the wind was trying to tell stories. Not loud stories, not dramatic stories, not the sort of stories that demanded attention. The wind preferred smaller stories, stories that drifted, stories that wandered, stories that most people hurried right past. The boy lived in a little house at the edge of a meadow where tall grasses swayed like green waves. Each evening, just before the stars appeared, he would sit on the wooden steps outside his front door. Then he would close his eyes and listen. The village around him was often busy. Doors opened and closed, dogs barked, wagons rattled down the road. People hurried home carrying baskets and bundles. Yet somehow, beneath all those sounds, the boy could hear the wind. Some nights it slipped through the grass with a sound like pages turning in a book. Some nights it moved through the trees with a gentle rustling whisper. And some nights it drifted so softly that it felt more like a feeling than a sound. One evening, an adult walking home noticed the boy sitting quietly on the steps. "What are you doing out here?" they asked. "I'm listening." "To what?" "The wind." The adult smiled politely, then continued on their way. But the boy remained where he was, because he knew something most people didn't. The wind was always arriving from somewhere, and wherever it came from, it carried little pieces of the world with it. One evening, the wind arrived carrying the scent of snow. Not the sharp smell of a winter storm, not the cold rush of icy weather, just a faint, clean scent, as though it had traveled from somewhere very high and very quiet. The boy closed his eyes and imagined distant mountains beneath a blanket of moonlight. He pictured tall pine trees standing silently along snowy ridges. He imagined a mountain goat resting on a rocky ledge, looking out across a world of silver peaks. Perhaps the wind had passed those places only moments before. Perhaps it had slipped across frozen lakes that reflected the stars. Perhaps it had wandered through valleys where no footprints disturbed the snow. The wind never said. It simply arrived, carrying a feeling of stillness, and when it brushed across the boy's face, he felt calm, too, as though a little piece of those quiet mountains had traveled all the way to him. Another evening, the wind felt different. It carried a salty scent the boy had never noticed before. The breeze seemed lighter somehow, playful, curious. The boy imagined an ocean far beyond the hills. He pictured waves rolling gently beneath moonlight, tiny boats rocking peacefully in a harbor, a lighthouse standing watch beside the shore, its beams sweeping slowly across the water. Perhaps seabirds were settling onto distant cliffs. Perhaps shells rested along sandy beaches listening to the tide. Perhaps somewhere a child just like him sat watching the water and wondering where the wind might go next. The breeze swirled around him and rustled the meadow grass. For a moment, he could almost hear waves moving across the shore. Then the feeling drifted away again, leaving only wonder behind. On another evening, the wind arrived carrying the smell of flowers. Not one flower, many. Lavender, wild roses, fresh-cut grass. The scent floated through the air like a forgotten memory. The boy imagined a village garden somewhere beyond the horizon. He pictured neat rows of vegetables sleeping beneath the moon, flower beds glowing softly in starlight, a sleepy cat curled beside a garden gate. fireflies blinking among the blossoms. Perhaps the wind had wandered down winding paths between the gardens. Perhaps it had rattled gently through hanging wind chimes. Perhaps it had slipped through open windows where families were settling beneath blankets for the night. The thought made the boy smile. The world suddenly felt larger than before. Not larger in a lonely way, larger in a comforting way, as though countless quiet evenings were unfolding all at once beneath the same sky. The more the boy listened, the more he realized that the wind was always traveling, always wandering, always gathering tiny pieces of the world. A scent, a sound, a feeling, a moment, then carrying them onward to somewhere new. And though he never knew exactly where the wind had been, he loved imagining the journeys it had taken before arriving at his doorstep. Each breeze felt like a small postcard from somewhere far away, a gentle reminder that the world was full of quiet wonders, even when he couldn't see them. As the seasons passed, he became very good at listening, not just to the wind, to everything. He noticed the way crickets began singing before nightfall. He noticed how leaves sounded different in spring than they did in autumn. He noticed that some evenings felt hurried while others felt slow and gentle. He noticed the way dew gathered on the grass before sunrise. He noticed how clouds changed shape as they drifted across the sky. He noticed that even silence sounded different from one day to the next. The more he listened, the more the world seemed full of stories. One warm summer evening, he heard the wind spinning through a field of flowers. It sounded cheerful somehow, like laughter carried from far away. The next night, the wind moved softly through the meadow grass. That sound felt calm, like someone settling beneath a blanket. Then there were nights when the wind barely moved at all. Those nights were special too, because even silence had its own story. The boy discovered that listening wasn't really about hearing more. It was about noticing more. Most people looked at a meadow and saw grass. The boy looked at a meadow and noticed 1,000 small movements. Most people heard wind. The boy heard a journey. Most people saw an ordinary evening. The boy saw a world quietly preparing for sleep. Years passed. The boy grew taller. The meadow remained, and the hills remained. Every evening, whenever he could, he returned to the steps outside his home. Sometimes he listened while the sun dipped below the horizon. Sometimes he listened beneath a sky full of stars. Sometimes he listened while a silver moon hung over the meadow. The wind was always different, yet somehow it was always familiar too, like an old friend arriving with a new story. One autumn night, the sky glowed with countless stars. The air felt cool and fresh. The village had grown quiet. Windows glowed softly in the distance. The lanterns flickered behind curtains. A dog barked once and then settled for the night. The boy sat down and closed his eyes as he always did. The wind arrived gently. It brushed across the meadow, through the trees, past the rooftops, across the wooden steps. The boy listened. This time the wind seemed different. Not stronger, not weaker, simply content, as though it had traveled a great distance and was happy to rest a while. The boy smiled. For the first time, he realized something. The wind had never been trying to tell him anything at all. It wasn't carrying lessons, or secrets, or answers. It was simply being itself, moving across forests, across rivers, across mountains, across fields, connecting everything it touched. And all these years, the gift had not been hearing the wind. The gift had been learning how to pay attention, to notice, to wonder, to be present for the small things, the things many people missed. The wind drifted past one last time that evening, soft, cool, gentle. The boy opened his eyes and looked up at the stars. Above him stretched the same sky that covered snowy mountains, the same sky that watched over oceans, the same sky that sheltered gardens, villages, forests, and fields. For a moment he felt connected to all of it, not because he had traveled everywhere, but because he had taken the time to listen. "Good night," he whispered. The meadow swayed softly, the trees settled, the village slept. The stars shimmered overhead, and the wind, as if it understood the moment perfectly, became quiet too. And now, as you listen to the sounds around you, perhaps there's no need to search for answers, no need to solve anything. Just notice the softness of your pillow, the comfort of your blanket, the steady rhythm of your breathing, and the quiet stories already around you, waiting patiently to be noticed. Good night.